Have you ever looked back at an older version of yourself and wanted nothing more than to wrap your arms around her? Not because she failed or because she made mistakes, but because you finally understand how hard she was trying. Sometimes we don't realize how much we're changing while we're in the middle of it. We're just living our lives, making the next decision, and trying to find our way through. Then one day we look back and realize we're not the same person anymore. That's what I'd love to talk about today. Hey there, welcome to Momma Drama and Trauma. I'm Jenny, and I'm so glad you're joining me today. If you've ever looked back at an older version of yourself and realized just how much you were carrying, this episode is for you. There may be a version of you who was simply trying to get through the days in front of you. You didn't know where life was taking you or how much things were about to change. You were just doing what needed to be done, taking care of the people you loved and trying to keep moving forward the best way you knew how. We don't always notice how much we're changing while we're in the middle of it because we're too busy living it. Then every once in a while, we get the chance to look back and realize just how different we are from the person we used to be. Wherever you are in your story, I hope you'll sit with me for a while today because I've been thinking a lot lately about the woman I was 3 summers ago and the woman sitting here today. 3 summers ago, I was just going about my life and I didn't know I was living in the last few days of the life I thought I was going to have. I wasn't walking around thinking something terrible was about to happen. I was thinking about laundry, where the boys needed to go, whether we had enough food in the house, and what invoices I needed to enter for the business. Just regular life. That's the funny thing about the days that change you forever. Most of the time, they don't announce themselves beforehand. That summer, nobody had a driver's license yet. Ryan and Derek had their permits and were practicing because they were getting ready to turn 16. Carson was getting ready to start his freshman year and had football practice. So I was always on the go. Somebody needed to go to the gym. Somebody wanted to go to a friend's house. Somebody needed to go shopping, or Carson needed to get to football practice. If somebody wanted to go to the movies with a girlfriend or meet up with friends, back in the car, I'd go. Then I'd come home and there'd be dishes in the sink because 3 teenage boys were home for the summer. There was always food disappearing, somebody needing something to eat, laundry to wash, and a house that somehow never stayed clean for very long. Somewhere in between all of that, I was trying to keep up with the business. It was busy, but it was my life. And as far as I knew, it was a good, ordinary summer in the middle of a good, ordinary life. A couple weeks before everything changed, I was getting 5 people ready to fly to Colorado. If you've ever packed a family for a vacation, you know packing your own suitcase is about 10% of the job. I was catching up everyone's laundry, figuring out what we needed to take, and trying to fit everything into suitcases because we were flying and couldn't just throw everything we owned into the back of the car. I was even ironing patches into my pants because apparently that was something I thought needed my attention at the time. Then right before we left, Ryan hurt his ankle playing basketball. There was another basketball sitting along the side of the court, and somehow he stepped on it and rolled his ankle. So now we weren't just getting 5 people and their luggage through the airport. We were getting 5 people, all their luggage, a teenager in a boot, and a pair of crutches through the airport. Those are the things I remember. all those little ordinary details because that's what my life was made up of then. And while I was doing all of that, I was also planning our future. I used to look at land and I'd find a piece of property I liked and send it to my husband. What about this one? I'd text him the listing. We had talked about getting back out on a little bit of land someday, building a house, having somewhere we could stay as we got older. And that summer, it didn't feel like some faraway dream anymore. Carson was starting high school, so only 4 more years. That was how I looked at it. 4 more years and all 3 boys would be out of high school. Maybe we should buy the land now so when we were ready to build, we'd already have it. There are text messages sitting in my phone from that summer of me sending my husband pieces of land where I thought we might grow old together. I didn't know I was sending him pictures of a future that wasn't going to happen. And the strange thing is, nothing seemed wrong to me. My husband was home that summer. He normally worked out of town, but we'd had hail in our area, so he came home around the end of May or beginning of June and was working locally. He worked long hours, but that wasn't unusual. Even when we went to Colorado, there are things I can look back at now and see differently. He seemed short with me sometimes, a little distant, maybe not quite himself. But when you're living inside a moment, you don't get the benefit of knowing what happens next. I didn't look at him and think, my husband's having an affair. I didn't suspect that at all. We came home from Colorado on a Friday. By Saturday, I was unpacking suitcases, washing dirty clothes, and trying to put the house back together after we'd been gone. My husband wanted to go to a pinball arcade, and I remember telling him I was exhausted. None of the boys wanted to go either, so he left and I stayed home. I don't actually know where he went that night. At the time, it never occurred to me that I should know. He said he was going somewhere, and I believed him because I trusted him. There wasn't some dramatic feeling in my stomach telling me to follow him. I didn't pull up his location. I didn't start investigating. I stayed home. Because when you've trusted somebody for that many years, sometimes trust looks incredibly ordinary. It looks like doing the laundry while they walk out the door. A few days later, on Tuesday, August 8th, I decided to redo the little half bathroom on our main floor. I spent the day painting, put peel and stick wallpaper on the back wall, and had bought a new light fixture. I had plans to change some of the hardware too. By the end of the day, I was tired and felt icky from painting and working in that bathroom. I didn't have the energy to take a shower, and I knew my husband wasn't coming home that night, so I thought I'd make myself a bed on the couch and shower in the morning. And when I picture the woman I was on August 8th, 2023, that's where I see her. She'd spent the summer driving her boys everywhere they needed to go. She'd taken her family to Colorado, unpacked the suitcases, and washed the clothes. She was thinking about driver's licenses, football practices, school shopping, and invoices. She was looking at pieces of land where she thought she and her husband might build the house they'd grow old in. That Tuesday, she painted a bathroom in the home she still believed belonged to the life she'd planned. Then she laid down on the couch and went to sleep. She had no idea she was going to wake up to a different life, learning to walk alone. The next morning, I woke up and eventually I had to learn how to live a life I had never planned on living. In the beginning, being alone didn't feel peaceful or freeing. It felt lonely and scary. One day, I thought I knew where my life was going, and the next day, I didn't know anything. I didn't know if my husband was going to want to come back, and at the time, I wanted him to. Looking back now, I can't imagine choosing that life again. But back then, I wanted the life I'd had. I wanted my husband, my family, and the future I thought we were supposed to have. I had people around me who loved me, but somehow I had never felt so alone. The person I wanted to go to for comfort was the same person who had caused the pain. That's such a strange place to be. The person you would normally turn to when your world falls apart is the person who turned your whole world upside down. I'd been with him for 24 years and I had never imagined my life without him beside me. Suddenly, I was wondering how I was supposed to do all of this by myself. What's strange when I look back is that physically, I had already been doing so much by myself for years. He worked out of town 6 or 7 months of the year. I took care of the boys, the house, and everything that kept our lives moving. I was already capable of doing a lot more than I realized. I just didn't know it yet. Not very long after everything happened, I went to look at cars. I drove over to a local dealership by myself. I wasn't planning to buy anything. I just wanted to see what was available. I'd never bought a vehicle by myself before. When I was younger, my dad went with me. After I got married, my husband went with me. There had always been a man beside me when I walked into a dealership to buy a car. Except this time, I walked in by myself. And somehow the woman who was only going there to look ended up buying herself a car. I didn't drive it home that day. I drove my van back because I still needed to clean everything out of it and wanted the boys to know what was happening before I traded it in. But I remember driving away from that dealership thinking, holy cow, I just did that all by myself. It probably sounds like such a little thing to someone who has always bought their own cars, but to me, it wasn't little. It was one of those first moments when I realized I could do more on my own than I thought I could. But learning I could do things by myself and actually feeling comfortable being alone were two very different things. Going out with friends was awkward because everybody was part of a couple, and then there was me. For 24 years, I'd been somebody's other half. Now I'd walk into a room and everybody seemed to have their person sitting beside them except me. Even going into a restaurant alone felt strange at first. There was something about asking for a table for one that made being alone feel more visible. But I kept doing things. After a while, some of the things that had felt uncomfortable didn't feel quite so uncomfortable anymore. I got used to my own company. Somewhere along the way, I realized I actually enjoyed it. The same things started happening at home. There were little things I would have once left for my husband to eventually take care of that I started figuring out myself. Just recently, one of the boys' sinks wasn't draining right, so I got underneath there, took the P-trap apart, cleaned it out, and put it back together. No leaks, works great, and I was ridiculously proud of myself. Not because cleaning out a P-trap is some great accomplishment, but because it was another one of those moments where I thought, okay, I figured that out too. Momma Drama and Trauma started somewhere in all of this too. At first, it was just a Facebook page where I could post memes and things that explained how I was feeling without overwhelming everybody on my personal page. Eventually, that little page became a podcast. I didn't start it because I thought I had everything figured out. I started talking because I remembered what it felt like to believe I was never going to get over what happened to me. I would see people who had healed and moved on and think they must not have loved their person as much as I loved mine. Because if they had loved somebody the way I love my husband, there was no way they could possibly be okay. That's how impossible healing felt to me then. And somewhere along the way, something changed. There wasn't a morning when I woke up and suddenly thought I was healed. What I remember realizing was something entirely different. I didn't want my old life back. The life I had been so terrified of losing wasn't a life I would choose anymore. I didn't want to buy something and worry about what somebody else thought. I didn't want to spend my day doing something that mattered to me and then worry because the dishes weren't done or the bathroom wasn't cleaned. If I want to work on Momma Drama and Trauma all day, I can. If the dishes sit in the sink a little longer, they'll still be there when I'm ready to wash them. And if my pants are wearing thin, apparently I can just buy another pair instead of ironing patches into them. That woman from 3 summers ago thought about everybody else all the time. She was on the list too. She just wasn't usually near the top of it. But now I make sure I am. The woman on the porch swing. Sometimes I wonder what would happen if the woman who went to sleep on that couch 3 summers ago could sit beside me on the porch swing today. I wonder what she'd notice first. I don't think it would be the microphone in my office or the podcast or any of the things I've built. She'd probably look at me and wonder how I got so calm, because that woman worried about everything. She tried to keep everything in order because somewhere inside of her, I think she believed that if she could just keep all the pieces in the right places, everything would be okay. The house, the boys, the business, the schedules, the marriage, and the future. The woman sitting here today doesn't do that nearly as much anymore. I still overthink and I can still get in my own head sometimes, but I don't try to control every little thing the way I used to. And then I'd probably tell her that we started a podcast. That alone would shock her. I'd tell her that we sat down in front of a microphone and started telling our story out loud. Not just the pretty parts. We talk about things that hurt. Things we didn't do perfectly, and things we once would have worried people might judge us for. And I think she'd be shocked that we don't really care what people think anymore. It was our life, we lived it. People can understand it or not, they can like us or not. But I think what would surprise her most is how okay we are being alone. That woman on August 8th had almost always had a man beside her. Before her marriage, there had been serious relationships, and then she spent 24 years with the person she thought she'd grow old with. Being part of a couple was normal to her. If I told her that one day she wouldn't need a man beside her, she wouldn't believe me. If I told her she'd even wonder sometimes whether she wanted another man beside her at all, she'd probably think I'd lost my mind. And if I told her that she wouldn't miss her marriage someday, I know she wouldn't believe that either. She couldn't imagine a different life because this was the only one she knew. I think if she sat beside me long enough, eventually she'd ask the question I would have wanted answered more than anything. Are we happy? And I'd tell her yes. But more than that, I'd tell her we found peace. If I could tell that woman what I'm proudest of her for, it wouldn't be the podcast or anything else we've built. I'd tell her I'm proud of her for getting up every morning. I'm proud of her for brushing her teeth, getting dressed, walking the dog, and getting the boys out the door on the mornings when she would have rather stayed in bed. There were days she went back to her room and cried. There were angry days, sad days, and days she handled things in ways she later wished she hadn't. But she kept going. And if she asked me, does it ever stop hurting? I'd tell her yes. Eventually it hurts less. But I'd also know she wasn't going to believe me because I was her. I know how convinced she was that she would never get over it. So maybe I wouldn't try to explain all of that to her. I don't think I'd tell her what's coming or give her some speech about how strong she's going to become. I'd just sit there with her. If she wanted to talk, I'd listen. If she wanted to cry, I'd let her cry. And if she didn't want to say anything, we'd just sit there and swing. I'd put my arms around her and hold her as long as she needed me to. And I'd tell her one thing: I've got you. Because when I think about what home means to me now, home will always be my boys. But home means something else now too. Home is peace. It's not a particular house, a piece of land, or another person. The woman who went to sleep on that couch that August night 3 years ago thought home was the life she'd built around herself. The woman sitting on this porch swing today knows home became something very different. Still becoming. Lately, I've started picturing another porch swing. This time, instead of looking backward, I picture the woman I'm going to be 3 years from now. I can't see her very clearly yet. I don't know where she's sitting or what the view looks like around her. Maybe there are chickens wandering around the yard. The sun could be going down while the frogs and crickets are starting up, with some 90s country music playing in the background. And maybe somebody is sitting beside her who every once in a while gets her up off that porch swing and dances with her around the porch. I'd like that, but I don't know if that's what her life looks like yet. I don't know what Momma Drama and Trauma has become. I don't know what the porch swing looks like. I don't know exactly where my boys are or how often they're coming through my door. And if I'm being truthful, not knowing still scares me sometimes. I still overthink. My brain still likes to get ahead of my life and start creating outcomes before anything has happened. There are still days when I wonder what the hell I'm doing. But now I can remind myself that I don't know how the story ends yet. 3 years ago, I wanted everything figured out because I thought knowing what came next would keep me safe. Now I know how quickly a plan can change. I can still dream about the porch, the chickens, and somebody dancing with me. I just don't need to know today whether that exact picture is going to happen. These days, a good life looks a lot more like peace to me. It looks like taking care of the people I love without leaving myself behind while I'm doing it. And I don't know the woman who's going to be sitting on that porch swing 3 years from now, but I do know what I hope she says when she looks back at me. I hope she says, "Thank you for not giving up. Thank you for recording another episode when you wondered whether anybody was listening. Thank you for continuing when you weren't sure where any of this was going. And more than anything, thank you for not leaving yourself behind again." I don't know where her porch swing is yet. I just know I'm still walking toward her. Porch swing reflection. Before we leave the porch swing today, I want you to picture yourself sitting here for a minute with an older version of you. Not some perfect version, just you at a time when life felt uncertain and you were doing the best you could with what you knew then. If that version of you were sitting beside you now, I wonder what they'd notice. There may be things in your life today that once felt impossible. Decisions you've made, things you've learned, or simply days you somehow made it through. We don't always notice those changes while they're happening. So take a minute and look back at that person with a little kindness. Then think about the version of you who's still ahead. You don't need to know where they'll live or what their life will look like. Just think about the person who will one day look back at the choices you're making right now and ask yourself this: What can I do today that I hope they'll someday thank me for? You don't have to answer right away. Just carry that question with you for a while. Thank you for sitting with me today. If you're somewhere in the middle of becoming a version of yourself you haven't met yet, I hope you'll give yourself some credit for how far you've already come. And if you're interested in the porch swing, I'll have all the details for you in the show notes. You can also find me on social media at Momma Drama and Trauma. As always, you are strong, you are worthy, and your story matters. Until next time, take care of you.